So we just saw how to take a function, take a handler function, like this handle on track click function, and pass it as a prop to a child. And then that child calls this on track click function, or prop, right here. It calls it with whatever arguments it wants, and that basically lifts up that value back into our handle on track click handler, right here. And it takes that, and then it sets the current index and updates the state accordingly. So this is the only way we can get data from children back into parents, is by passing the children an update function that they can then call whenever they need to. And this is also a pattern you'll see pretty regularly, so it's good to show it here. And we're going to see it one more time when we start adding new components, or when we start adding new tracks to our playlist. So let's create a new component here called add track. Sounds right. And we'll export default function add track, and then we'll return a div with a class name equals add track form, and then we're gonna make a form here. Like, you see forms everywhere, right? And you can always submit stuff into a form, and you got to do something with that data somewhere, and we're gonna show you how to handle that in React. So the first thing we'll want to do is we'll want to add, I don't know, what do we need? In the app, we need 3 song name, movie title, duration. Okay. Duration might be a little tricky. I think I have an idea how to handle that. I probably did not think that one out as clearly, but we'll see. First, let's put an H2 in here. It just says add new track. And then we'll put a div with a class name equals form input. And let's put a label in there. And we'll say HTML for whatever the name of that is. What's the song name? Is that what we called it? Input. And we'll create an actual input equals song name. And it'll be a type of text since we called it song name. Cool. Yeah. And then the placeholder will equal song name. And let's make 3 of these, because there's 3 things there. This one, what do we call this one? Movie title. Something like that. Movie title. Placeholder is movie title. Oh boy, this is getting repetitive, but that's fine. We're almost done. And this last one is duration. Duration. Name duration. And this one, let's use a number, because entering as a string sounds silly, and we won't put a placeholder in there. And we'll say number or duration in seconds. Number of seconds? I don't care, whatever. Duration in seconds. Then, yeah, we're going to do some tricky math in there, but I think we should be fine. And then last but not least, we'll have a button with a class name equals button and submit. And we'll save. I'll call it save. Okay, so let's save this, because we're exporting that add track, and then let's import it here. Import add track from add track, and we'll put that right at the bottom. Add track, just like that. And so when I save this, let's see what it looks like. Come down here, we see add new track, and that is not a very good looking form. Let's add some styles to it, because that's a no-go at the moment. Oh, did I spell one of them wrong? Class name? It's so nice that React does this too. Invalid DOM property class name. Did you mean class name? I actually did. Appreciate you. So we'll come here, we'll find, there it is. That's where I did it. Notice, by the way, the labels, we're using this HTML4 duration, and it's referring to the name of the input. We can't say for equals duration, because for starts a for loop in JavaScript. So instead they used HTML4. It's the same thing with class name. And so you'll see this a couple times in how we define attributes on generic HTML elements. Also, by the way, make sure you end your inputs, each of these, because I messed it up a ton when I first started learning React. Remember that every element needs a closing tag. Okay, there we go. And then we'll head into our app.css and we'll add some styles. Let's say our add track form. Well, first let's move it away from the top a little bit. Let's say margin top, I don't know, 20 pixels And let's, that's good enough. Let's make the H2, the title. Let's give it some margin on the top and bottom of 10 pixels and 0. Let's also say all of our form input holders, form input, let's make them display flex, flex direction column. Margin is do the same thing. Let's do 10 pixels 0. And then let's style the inputs. Form, I hope I spelled all this right. I might not have. Let's give it a padding of 8 pixels, 12 pixels on the inputs. And let's make them a little bit curved. And then let's give them no border. Let's get rid of their border because the borders look weird on the generic inputs. Let's also style the button. The font size, let's make it big. Let's also give it a bunch of padding. Let's give it a bunch more padding on the sides. Let's give it a border of 1 pixel, solid white. Let's make the border rate, let's make it rounded also, 8 pixels, and let's give it some margin top of 10 pixels. I typed a lot, so if you missed any of that, go ahead and pause it right now and just write that in. Again, this isn't a course on CSS, so I'm not going to go over that in graphic detail, but there we go. Okay, that looks significantly better. And we can type in here, and it all looks good, but we have a problem. And here's the problem. Are you ready? If I go to my components here, if I go to my React DevTools, I have this add track, right? And however, I noticed that there's no way to access these input values. Add track is not keeping track of them. And that's funny. There's really no way for add track to know what those values are. We could go in there and do some document.getElementById, query selectors, inner HTML, value, set attributes, stuff like that. But in React, there is actually a much better way to handle that. And it's called controlled inputs. And so in the next video, we're going to explore how to use controlled inputs, which is the React way of managing form inputs with state.